Amy is trying to get all of her stuff together. And remember, we may have great connections in our house or somewhere or work, but it also is dependent upon what all is going on outside too. If you have a lot of people that are on the internet in your area, then you may have a different, reception. So I want to introduce you guys to Amy Plant. Amy and I do not know how long we've known each other. It's been a while. Um, currently she's a gerontologist and she's adjunct faculty instructor at Youngstown State in Ohio. She's also a service coordinator and a community educator. She has presented at numerous conferences in biopsychosocial. She's worked in policy. She's worked in service. She's done a lot at from an individual, so from a micro and a macro perspective. She's done a lot of care coordination. Amy has also been very instrumental in working with OH, which is the Ohio Association of Gerontology and Higher Education. She's presented at that conference quite a bit with one of her mentors and one of our mutual friends, Dan Van Dusen, who you will hear later this semester. Dan will be visiting us. You'll see a trend in a lot of Ohio people, probably because I know more Ohio people than anywhere, because gerontology is a small segment in the U.S., but a huge segment in Ohio with a lot of different programs. Amy is just going to talk to you guys today about how she got into gerontology. And, we've talked some, and I've talked with some of y'all about how we find jobs, how we end up in jobs, what happens, how do we move forward. And one of the biggest things is just those opportunities that present themselves and how we go about handling those opportunities. So with that, I'm going to turn everything over to Amy, and I'm going to turn my mic off, and so we can conserve some energy here. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you. So guys, I want to give you a little heads up. You will probably hear dogs barking. My kids came home and it's kind of pandemonium. So this is the joys of working at home. I do work at home most of the time. A lot of you and a lot of your professors right now. It's kind of with COVID going on. But I do want to touch base with you today a little bit about, like Pam said, those opportunities, Dr. Brown, about those opportunities and how they come about. I did not plan to be a gerontologist. It kind of happened by accident, and I kind of fell into that passion based on some really great mentorships. If I can give you any advice going forward, is to make sure that you find a good mentor. Good mentors like Dr. Brown, other professors that you have, people in the community are really the stepping stone. Not only do you learn so much from them in your classrooms, but outside of the classrooms as well. And they can connect you to people, getting to know people. And you'll find that when you have an opportunity and you get to know people and you find yourself to be reliable, you work hard, you put in the effort, and people see that you have a passion, the jobs are much easier to find. And people will be willing to take that extra step for you. They'll be able to be willing to go that extra mile, all because you put in that effort in that time. And it's not all about grades. We always preach about grades, right? But let me tell you, and I think Dr. Brown will probably agree with me on here, I would rather have a student who doesn't have a 4.0, who has passion and heart, shows up, wants to do the work, takes the opportunities, is willing to look and think outside of the box, maybe pursue an avenue that they didn't necessarily think of before, be willing to try something out of their comfort zone, than someone who may look fantastic on paper, but is very rigid in their thinking, doesn't really want to volunteer something that doesn't interest them, or isn't reliable. And so that's something that I want you guys to think about as we talk about these things as well. So as she said, my background's pretty varied. I'll go through just a quick rundown. I ended up just falling into the field again by accident. I started off my career as a stay-at-home mom, actually. I was a caregiver for my mother for many years till she died, and my kids went to school, and I thought, I sat on a degree. First of all, my degrees are in psychology, sociology, and gerontology. I had triple major. Didn't start out that way, but I sat on my 2 degrees, psych and soc, as a mom, and I wanted to go back, and I was getting my certificate in gerontology. They had changed it, and that's where I met Dan Van Dusen, who she said you'll meet later this semester. Really, it's just showing up to classes. He offered me an opportunity to work on a project. I started that. I met people from the Ohio Department of Aging. They really liked my work. They invited me to do some work, became a scholar, did work with them. While I was there, they offered me another opportunity. All of a sudden, I was hired to do consulting work. And it really just kind of snowballed. Every time I did something, I got to meet new people. And I was always interested in what other people had to say. I would like to ask, how many of you go to conferences? Do any of you go to conferences or anything like that?
Okay. So the answer to that is probably not as many as you would suspect, but we're getting there.
She's on mute, Dr. Brown.
Ones. Say that again.
Oh, we couldn't hear you because you were on mute.
Can you hear everything now?
Yeah.
So what I was asking, so I don't know how much you actually heard then, because I thought I was connected. So I was really just talking about the ways to get opportunities and to kind of be out there and about there with people. Did you hear all of that? I was asking how many of you have gone to conferences, and Dr. Brown said not many of you have had experience with that.
That's correct.
And that's okay. You know, a lot of students are very intimidated by that. I always recommend, I know Dr. Brown is very involved in SGS. I recommend if you ever have the opportunity to go, to please do so. Even if you don't think it's your thing, even if you think it's kind of nerdy, there are great connections to be made. You learn a lot of stuff. And I think sometimes as students, I don't know about you, but when I was first starting out, you don't even know what to be interested in because you don't know what else is out there. And until you really get to see other people's work or what other people are doing, you really don't even know what you like because you've never been exposed to it. So if you have the opportunity, go. If you don't have the opportunity, get online, look at things that are going on, see what else is out there in your field. Talk to your professors, see what they're into, what they're up to, what projects they're working on. A lot of times they'll be more than happy to share with you. I think all of us teach. We're not teaching out there because we want to get rich and famous. We want to share our love of what we do with you. And so if you're showing up and you're doing the work and you want to know, I think anybody will help you. I would help any student. If Dr. Brown were to call me tomorrow and say, hey, Amy, I have someone I really want, if I had an opportunity available, I would help. It goes across state lines because you can collaborate from anywhere, which is fantastic. I've worked with a lot of physicians in Georgia, in California, all over the place, not just Ohio. So those are things you can do. I would recommend trying to go to conferences, even if you just want to get your feet wet and just listen. You don't always have to present. I always recommend taking posters, but if you're not ready for that, that's okay. There's often scholarships at the school, so they'll pay for that because I know it can be cost prohibitive. But those are always things that you can look at. I think that's a good way to start and make connections with people, asking questions.
We actually
What-
have the Center for Undergraduate Research. So one of the great things about Albany State is that we do have Title III funds, which has funded the Center for Undergraduate Research. So students can find a mentor, and I always encourage my students as soon as they can to participate in this. It is a little different this year since we're virtual right now, but we can actually expand this into spring where students can do research. And I have mentored several students through the process that now have publications as undergraduates before even going to graduate school.
That's fantastic. And you're right. I think that that is probably one of the best things you can actually have on campus. I don't think students realize how important that is. Meeting, people always say that you go to college to prepare yourself for your professional career. And I kind of almost disagree with that. Your professional career starts the minute you step foot in that classroom. That's when your job interview starts. You start, building your personal work ethic and how professors perceive you and what opportunities are going to come your way based on your interactions with your professors. You're taking accountability. You showing up and doing the work. Do your professor expect you to know everything? Absolutely not. We can train people to know the skills that they need to know. What we can't train is passion, accountability, and showing up and taking opportunities and being open-minded and willing to think outside the box. Those are things that are super important. Finding a mentor you can trust is probably one of the most important things you can do. They can open up a world of opportunities for you. I would not be where I am today. I would not have the jobs I have. I would not have the opportunities or the publications I have if it weren't for all the mentors that helped me. They have taught me what I know. They have paved that way for me. They have given me those opportunities, and those will come to you as well. Someone's going to say something for a moment. How many of you have an idea of what you want to do? You can, if you don't want to talk, you can go ahead and text it in the chat box. That's fine. But does anybody have any idea of what they like to do or any kind of passion they have in their field? This is a policy class. Does anybody have a special interest in a certain policy? Clinical psychology. Now, do either one of you know what kind of clinical psychology you want to do? Do you have a certain area you're interested in? Clinical psychology is a great field. It can be one of those fields that can be very tough in terms of graduate school. It can be incredibly competitive. And so that is where having a good mentorship and getting a head start in your undergraduate careers can be very helpful. And it doesn't all have to be clinical psychology. A lot of times people want you to have experience working and building in teams and relationships. Mental health, working in the hospital. So that's what Jocelyn mentioned. And that's a really great field. I kind of work with a lot of people in clinical psychology. I work with people in hospitals, and my job is a care coordinator, and I'm a service coordinator, and I actually connect people to mental health all the time. I deal with people with severe mental health issues all the time. And it's kind of interesting how, did I ever think I would work in that? No. Would never be something I planned. But life has a funny way of kind of tying things together. So one of the things that I do is I want you to think about your career, and I don't want anybody to think that I'm shooting things down, because I definitely want to encourage you to follow your passions and what you want to do. That's how you're going to be the best at whatever you decide. However, think about ways you can work with people in mental health that isn't just a hospital. Older adults. Of course, I'm a gerontologist, so that's my passion coming through. A lot of older adults, mental health needs are so great and so underreported. So where can maybe you can't get into clinical psychology in a hospital right now, but maybe there's some professors that are working in that field that they have a need or a project that they're working on. And if you kind of start talking about what they're doing, you can get some experience along the way. And you may find that it opens up opportunities. And Dr. Brown just came up with a couple ideas with doctors, professors who are good to talk to you about. And I think that's an important thing too. Knowing what you want to do and letting that be known helps you find other connections and resources. So that's really important too.
I have a question, Miss Plant.
Sure.
Okay, so I know you just said like you work with a lot of older adults because of your career. So let's just say, and when I said hospital, I didn't just mean just people in the hospital. I want to be able to help people throughout the. So what if I when I become a clinical psychologist, I work somewhere like in the hospice. Well, not really a hospice, but like a place where older people are that because you said they face a lot of mental health issues too. But would they be like able to really just say what's bothered them? Because a lot of them are disabled.
Sure. So there's a couple of different ways you go to that. First of all, a lot of times if you go into that route, if say people have dementia, you would work with their families actually on a whole other realm because there's a whole counseling side that way in dealing with issues of aging, issues of disability, dementia. You can also there still need to be clinical psychologists and counselors for older adults. A lot of times we change the way we say things. If you ask someone, an older adult, if they have depression, they're going to tell you no, because to them, there's a lot of stigma.
Right.
Really, there's stigma in mental health anyway, but especially among older adults. But if you ask them something like, have you been feeling a little blue? Changing the way we word things for older adults, because they're much less likely to. They grew up in a time where mental health issues weren't talked about like they are now. But they also have, as people are aging, not only. So when you think about when you're aging, personality stays stable across the lifespan, right? Well, if they had needs when they were younger, they're going to need them when they're older adults. However, and I was just going to get to the geropsychology piece. And on top of that, those needs always stay with them. But when you get older, you have normative age losses, you have normal declines, you have different function and role shifts. A lot of people struggle when they, lose a spouse or they retire and they have a role change. So those are all things. Geropsychology is actually fascinating. I don't know if you've ever heard much about it, but it is a huge part of dementia care and Alzheimer's disease. I'm actually a certified dementia practitioner. I work with these on a regular basis. And so maybe you're interested in something like that. Maybe you had someone who is touched by dementia or Alzheimer's disease. Maybe you've seen a parent or a grandparent struggle with either a role change or a loss of a spouse or a disability. So a lot of times people pursue what they like find what they like based on personal experiences. I lost my mother when she was only 57. She had a lot of health concerns and I was a caregiver for over 10 years. So I do a lot of caregiver research now. I work and I counsel with a lot of families. I counsel them on how to take care of themselves while they take care of their loved ones. I do a lot of education in that realm, and it's a lot of counseling in a way, maybe perhaps not in a clinical sense, but teaching them different things that they can do for their families, taking care of themselves, where to find information. So there's a lot of different ways you can go about it, even if you're not thinking of it in this setting. There are private practice, but there are a lot of ways to do things in educational aspects too. As a service coordinator, it's kind of interesting. I do a little bit of all of the above. I connect people to services, mental health services. I work with people that are homeless to get them housing. I've been able to get people services that they need to stay independent, living in their home and community dwelling rather than going into long-term care. So it can be very varied. I may not be a clinical psychologist, but I do a lot of counseling. I connect them to mental health resources, and I work with a lot of them one-on-one. And I'm also very aware of what psych meds they're taking and how they affect the rest of them as well, as an overall holistic piece. Anybody else besides clinical psychology? Any other interest in the class?
So, Amy, let me ask you a question, because
Yes.
I know that a lot of our students do that want to go into clinical psych. They go get a master's first in psychology, or even a MSW, since we have an MSW program at ASU that is pretty seamless transition for our undergraduate students.
Yeah.
But what else would be a good option, as many students do have to wait to get into clinical psych? What about a PsyD? Or is that more difficult than a clinical psych PhD?
And clinical psych is actually probably one of the more competitive programs, actually. You can get a PsyD as well. It really just depends on what route you want to go, how much you want to be in private practice, how much you want to do in research. And those are when you start asking questions and what people are doing and looking at their backgrounds. I always tell students, look at people, their backgrounds, read their CVs, look them up on the websites of their universities, find out their backgrounds and ask them, how did you get to do what you're doing now? And, what advice would you have for me to get there? Because everybody, like I said, has a different way of getting there, and you fall into things. So that's really, like I said, clinical is a little harder, but again, you could do either one. Does that make sense? Did I even make sense in that answering your question?
Yeah. So
I'm not a psych. I have a psych degree. That's not where most of my focus is anymore.
Right. And I have almost finished a psych undergraduate years ago. So
I have my bachelor's in psychology, and I loved it. It's a great field, but that's not. I don't know as much about it now as I did maybe years ago when I was looking at grad schools for that.
So I know that you can, there's two different ways. And one of the things, since you guys are talking clinical psych, I think probably one of the things too that you would want to look at in aging, always reach out. I've got other people that we can talk to with clinical degrees, but also Dr. Thomas does a lot of clinical work, but Dr. Reed is our clinical psychologist who is on faculty. The other thing that you might want to look at is, what is the difference? So let me see. All right, who have I got? No, everybody's on, everybody's muted. So we're just getting feedback from somewhere. The other thing I would say is, let's look, if you are interested in moving forward with a clinical psych, let's look and see, do you need a master's? Do you not need a master's? Those are also some of the other things. While you're looking for a PhD or a PsyD, determine which one is better for what you are wanting to do. And again, this is where I say, go to Dr. Reed, go to Dr. Thomas. They know who's going into the PhD and master programs. They are very much in touch of that. They are your best people to talk to for moving forward. And then they can also point you in a good direction on what you need. So I know that you need really high scores on your GRE. There are some schools, and this is one of the reasons that I said if you don't want a PhD, because the PhD is also a lot of times a research-based position. And so you would be doing a lot of your research, statistics, methods, focusing on either going into a psychology research position or working with NIA, NIH, someone like that as far as a researcher. My understanding from a psyche is you would be more boots on the ground, people, interaction. So there are different ideas on what you want to do. And if any of those meet that criteria, then let's look and see where do we need to go. And also, as Amy was saying, with aging, it's not that you're just going to be dealing with older adults. Most of the time, you're going to be dealing with a family who maybe their whole situation has shifted and changed. And, you know, the diagnosis of dementia, diagnosis of Parkinson's, diagnosis of some of the illnesses that really ALS, any of these, you're going to really be working with people as they age, as they age. And that may be something, that may be a decision that you would want to make as well.
And so what I also, to kind of piggyback off on that is, you know, it's really important to kind of research what each thing needs. You know, I was on a fast track. I wanted to get my PhD as well at one point, and then I realized that for what I wanted to do, I could still teach and do the research and things I loved without getting that, and I could still be more hands-on with people. I like seeing people every day. I like working with families. I like that one-on-one, and I didn't want to get so far removed from that. And so it wasn't necessary for me. And I thought, well, do I really want to put 6 extra years in? And it is good for some people. I think it's just like you said, looking at the different programs based on what you want your outcomes to be. Pursue the education that is right for you, not merely for the sake of just having more credentials, but to get you where you want to go. And you know, making sure that one may be easier to get into, but is it going to make you happy? Is it going to give you what you want? Or are you pursuing it because it's more money? I mean, making sure that you find the right fit for you is important. Just like finding the right fit to go to what school you want to go to in undergrad. There has to be that sense of fit, and you want to fit into with your mentors as well. You know, I've seen it happen time and again. People want to work with one mentor because they're very prolific in their field and it makes them feel very important. And they pursue it so heavily that they miss a lot of opportunities along the way. And so that's something to keep in mind as well, too. While you're preparing for these programs, there's a lot of other things in undergrad that might not be exactly what you're looking for, but it'll give you good experience and make you a better candidate when you're wanting to apply to these programs. So that's where I go into that whole point too, where yes, you want a good fit for that school, but also don't turn your nose up at other opportunities along the way that can give you other valuable experience. And Jocelyn, I can also send you some information between the two as well. I know Dr. Brown would be more than happy to do it, but I can also send you a difference between the two programs. I actually have some paperwork on that if you'd be interested in the difference between the two.
So a lot of, and it's really a lot, and Amy, thank you for doing that. Amy's great with students, let me also say. Another reason why I really wanted her here. But you know, when we what a PsyD is. A lot of times you can go straight with from a bachelor's program to a PsyD. It depends on the program, but there are programs that are PsyDs that allow you to come in with a bachelor's degree. And what they do is they get you a master's along the way. I know several people that have done that. One of the things, and I have to say, if you're looking at the difference too, a PsyD is going to be a lot less competitiveness than a PhD, because the PhD acceptance rate is low. It's around 15% or less. I know that PsyD programs are between 35 and 45%. So they're also a little shorter than a PhD program. But they're direct, they're hands-on. So a lot of them are very much more hands-on, and it's direct care, direct client care. So those are some different things. You might want to see what you can do with that. And that's, again, let's look at the information and then we'll see, what the next thing is. But we're always happy to help you apply, give you good pointers, write you recommendation letters to get you in. And that's something that's really important as you move forward.
And picking back off of it again, also, this is where, again, that opportunity piece comes in. It's so much easier for professors or practitioners or people in the field to write you those recommendation letters when we're truly familiar with your work ethic, and your passions, and what you're really interested in. You show that. If we worked with you on a project and we've had the opportunity to see you be a leader or to be a hard worker on something, it's so much easier to write that letter for you rather than, well, they did okay in my class. Foster those relationships, because when you want it time to come down to write that letter, you want that person to know you well enough that it's not generic, that it's personal to you, and they can go to bat for you. And Jocelyn, I did get that email address, and I will mail that out to you this evening.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you so much. And also, guys, one of the things that we might want to look at, this is another thing about working in the Center for Undergraduate Research, or getting to know your professors. Your professors have an idea of what kind of student you are. And that is based on your interaction with the professor. It's based on your interaction with your schoolwork. So doing your schoolwork well is important, not just doing an A grade, being able to do your schoolwork. I remember years ago that I actually wrote a recommendation for a student. I wrote a recommendation for a student who had a lot of issues in life. So they were working, they were taking care of a grandmother, they were doing all these things. And so she wasn't maintaining a 4 point, but she was maintaining above a B or a B plus. She was around a 3.4. And she was like, I don't know if I can even get into graduate school. My grades are just not high. And I said, but the thing is it's all about that I know you. I know the work that you do. I know how you are. I also know that you are making sure that you can be there for your grandmother, that you can be there for someone. And so it's not just your grades. I wrote a great recommendation letter saying everything that she ever did was fabulous. She worked really hard on it. But the problem is that life happens. And so, we always tell you, life happens. Don't worry about it. Let me know. If you get sick, let me know. If someone dies, let me know. I can't fix things if I don't know.
And
Go ahead.
I'm actually going to give you a little full disclosure here. That is actually me in a nutshell. When I went to go to graduate school, now I used to have really high grades, and then my mom got sick. My dad was disabled. I moved home, took care of them. My dad, I had work. My husband lost his job. It was crazy, and life happened. And guess what? My grades really kind of went down, and I was kind of nervous to apply for graduate school. And I thought, God, I don't know anybody. I don't know what to do. And it was actually my mentor who was like, he said to me, and I'll never forget, he's like, you're so much more than your grades. You're so much more than your GPA. Stop worrying about that. Is it important? Absolutely. But GREs aren't the end all be all of everything. And it's who you are. All of you are so much more than a GPA. All of you are so much more than a test score. And so you're human and you're people. And that is so important. And if I had let that fear stop me, I wouldn't have done anything. And so looking back now, those things that I went through made me better. Now it made me a better professional, made me a better professor to other people who are struggling. It also makes me understand the people that I work with on a daily basis. So when they talk to me about their struggles with caregiving, or they talk to me about compassion fatigue and being tired and worried and stressed all the time, I understand. It's not a number to me. And so you'll find that a lot of the things that you struggle with now is, you may not believe me now, but in a few years, you'll realize that that actually makes you a stronger, better student. Like I was saying before, you can have a 4.0, but it's easier to get a 4.0 when everything's taken care of for you and that's all you have to worry about. But when you're managing work and a family and life and other things going on, having to work, having family issues, it's a whole other ball game too. And those things are important, and being able to manage all that together is really impressive, and it makes you strong.
And even this whole semester and summer and spring where you've had to be online.
It is a pandemic. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Give yourself some grace.
Have a 4 point. Yeah. Cut yourself some slack.
Yeah. And let me tell you, I struggle with this all the time. I still struggle with this. I always see issue doing more, being more, getting more done. Why didn't I publish it this month? I wanted to get it done this. And I even get caught up in that. And, at the end of the day, give yourself some grace and do what you can do. And don't let a small thing stop you. Don't let your fear of, I can't handle anymore, stop you from reaching out for help, taking on another opportunity, working with someone. Part of your building your relationships with your professors are them getting to know who you are personally, what you struggle with. It's not a sign of weakness to go to your professor and say, hey, I'm struggling. I really need help with this, because that shows you're trying. And so we can't help you the end of semester if you don't do anything all semester, and then all of a sudden you need help. We can't fix it then, but we can help you if we know early on, and we can work with you. None of us are trying to be jerks. We can help you. We just have to know ahead of time so we can give you the help that you need and give you the opportunities you need. If you say, hey, I'm looking for this. I want to go into clinical psych. I don't know what to do. Where can I go? And Dr. Brown may say, well, that's not my realm, but these are the two people you should talk to. They can help you. I don't always have the answers for my students, but I know somebody who does. And I have a lot of connections and a great network of really smart, amazing people who can get them the answer that I might not have. And so that's why those relationships are so important.
And I think this is also, Amy, one of the reasons that when we started this semester, I reached out to different people and said, who are the people that I know that are not just successful, but had struggles to become successful? And I knew Amy's story. I knew the story of her caregiving. Dr. Baker, Dr. Hallie Baker, that you guys had a couple of 3 weeks ago. Dr. Baker took care of her mom who had polio and then who had Alzheimer's the entire time that she was getting her PhD and her master's degree. The entire time. She lived with her parents to be basically her mom's caregiver, and then her dad would kind of help while Hallie was in school. And so, because he was old as well. And so these struggles really make you different and separate you. And as I tell people, embrace your struggles, put your struggles down on paper, because you have no idea what one struggle. Surviving COVID in a college environment is a struggle. I know because I'm teaching. So it is an enormous struggle. All of us are not made for this online learning. And that's not exactly what all of us really were hoping that we would get to do. But sometimes we just have to look at it. And Amy, they're well aware of me going, yeah, don't worry about that right now. And someone said, yeah, but Dr. Brown, the due date says, and I said, yeah, sometimes I change due dates, not for you, but for me, because I know I'm under a lot. So I go, yeah, don't worry about it. Like, we're good.
Yeah, and I think that's something too that students forget. I always joke that sometimes I'll see, my students out and they forget we're people. With our own lives and our own things going on and our own things that we're struggling with too. And that doesn't mean we don't have time for people, but we're not unapproachable. And so we all do what we do because we love what we do. We all want to share our love and our knowledge of education and our field with other people. And so having those conversations early, building those relationships are the most important thing you can do. But yeah, we're people. I saw someone out there and they're like, I didn't know, it was so weird seeing outside of school. I'm like, it's like almost like
Uh-oh. Oh no. We've got Amy frozen. Oh, Amy's got low bandwidth. So,
just got to tell us about it.
There you go. Okay, you dodged out for a little bit. You went into a circular motion, and so we're just waiting for you to make it back. Glad you did. So, Amy's advice is super. The fact that also one of the things that you'll hear within aging is the idea that a lot of us took care of someone, or we've grew up with our grandparents being huge influences in our lives and really recognizing the struggles. A lot of us had family members who suffered from dementia, Alzheimer's, or another debilitating polio or Parkinson's or ALS. And so, you find out that a lot of us do go into this field of aging because we've had great experiences with our aging relatives. And we realize that the stereotypes of old people are also wise and brilliant. I can show you a whole bunch of old people that are not. But I can also show you a lot of older adults who are extremely resilient, who have really survived all of the different wars and everything else that's gone on. So we are getting a lot of feedback. I'm not sure what's happening. So Janai, I totally understand your sound is messing up. Yeah, mine is. I'm getting a lot of feedback. So who knows? I don't. We never know. what's going on. It's the internet. But one thing, do y'all have any? So we're kind of getting close to our time. Do you guys have any other questions for Amy? Anything?
Hopefully, I didn't bore you to tears.
Amy, we're just happy you came to visit. We just want to say thank you. So I'm going to turn the recording off. So I'm closing the recorder. Okay. And if you want to ask Amy any questions or say anything, that's fine. I want to make sure that everyone knows that let's see what's happening and what we are doing. We've got Amy. It was interesting. Thank you. Thank you, Jocelyn. And I really appreciate you guys putting in, some comments. That's very helpful to make sure that, we're doing this. We are looking at our, you have a activity. Well, it was due, but if it's late, don't worry about it. It's still open. Just handle that however you can. Discussion forward and aging policy at the news. So if you guys get a chance to work on any of that this week, that'll be great. If not, I'll see you on Wednesday and we'll go over chapter 3. And so, Amy, we want to tell you thank you, though, for coming, and you'll come visit us another time.
I will do that. And for those of you who send me your email addresses and ask questions privately, I will make sure you get that information later this evening.
And I think I may have posted your email, but if not, I will.
That's fine.
I'm
always open to anybody calling, asking questions, talking to me outside of class. Anytime I can connect anybody to anything, I'm more than happy to do that.
Okay, I'm gonna send your email.
Okay.
I'm gonna put both of her emails, and I will send those. I'm actually gonna post those in the announcement where it said that she was
use my LinkedIn address if they want to connect there as well.
Okay.
I can send that to you.
Okay. And LinkedIn is a great place to hook up with people who are looking really to reach out their connections. You want to find people that are in the field that you're interested in going into, and just meet them. This is one of the easiest ways to do this. And so I'm going to put Amy's emails and
Dr. Brown, that's actually how I got my entire capstone and my entire thesis written in graduate school. Was someone actually got a hold of me on LinkedIn, invited me to do parts of their work, and I ended up getting all of their data.
Oh, wow.
I've gotten a lot of opportunities from them and a lot of consulting gigs from LinkedIn, and I kind of poo-pooed it at first. So
that's
it's
great.
good for that.
It really is. And I encourage, this is another reason why, guys, that I encourage you, particularly in some classes, to create an email that is specifically like your name, or something to do with, with you. In Gmail, because, like I say, don't make your email fluffy bunny chicken at, Gmail. Make it your name. It's very professional, and you always want to put forth a professional look on your LinkedIn account. But every one of you should be on it and should be connecting with people in fields that you are interested in. It's a great way. I've done consulting gigs as well through LinkedIn. So it's kind of a good side gig stuff too. So I know y'all are always looking for that as well as we are. So, but Amy, we want to tell you thank you so much. And I have sent all of that info, and guys, I will see y'all on Wednesday. Okay?
Thanks, guys. You have a great day.
Thank you.
Have a good semester. Bye-bye.